In real estate, the leads are either bought or earned. But what happens when the market cools and the ad budget runs dry? Matt McGee is the founder of the SEO Savvy Agent, a consultancy that helps real estate professionals get found organically. Before that, he was a journalist, an in-house SEO, and even worked at a major digital marketing platform. He's seen how agents lean on short-term wins and why that's a problem. This episode is about the long game, how SEO, content, and reputation building stack up against the quick fix of paid leads. We talk about the business model of real estate marketing, the myths agents buy into, and why Google's shifting landscape makes things both harder and more hopeful. The real story is about trust, how to build it, how to rank for it, and why most agents don't. Matt walks us through what a sustainable marketing strategy looks like in an industry that's often anything but. Matt's challenge is convincing agents that SEO is worth the wait, especially when the pressure to close deals fast can override long-term thinking. So Matt set out to do something different, to teach agents how to build authority the slow, sustainable way. And he's learned a lot about what actually works and what definitely doesn't. Here's our conversation. Welcome to episode 95 of the Page 2 podcast. As always, I'm your host, John Clark, and joined with my partner in crime at Moving Traffic Media, Joe DeVita. Hey, we're very excited to welcome Matt McGee to the show. Welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you. It's great to be here. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's a busy start to the week. Better that than slow, right?
Yes, exactly. Always good to be busy.
So I wanted to dive right in. You've had such a unique and interesting background that started in sort of TV and broadcasting. And then around the 1990s, you sort of moved into web development. And
Yes.
we had a great conversation with Marshall Simmons, who also is sort of an OG in this space.
Yeah.
And he talked a lot about just there not being a lot of resources to learn from. And so I was curious from your perspective, like how did you sort of make that move and also find resources about an industry that was so new?
Yeah, it was like I look back on it very fondly right now, just because, nostalgia and that kind of stuff. But boy, it was really different. And it was very, very difficult back then. I mean, I started doing like hobby websites and building personal websites and just absolutely loved it. And I was doing TV sports and, in a small town and, lugging around. Like you see camera people now that, they have these little, it's like really easy to carry. Like back then, the camera equipment I was carrying around was like 40, 50 pounds. And I'd have to run up and down the football field, for 3-4 hours on a Friday. And I was just like, this is not for me. I'm getting too old for this. So I just decided I was having so much fun doing the websites. I was like, let's try to make a business out of it, make a career out of this. And there happened to be a local company that was hiring. That's how the transition happened. Like finding resources though, you're right. It was really difficult. There were some very few websites out there where you could learn about stuff like that. There was I remember there was like Adobe Photoshop 2 or 3 or something that probably had some help documents, but it was very much like learn as you go, figure it out as you go, and a whole lot of R&D, and by R&D, I mean rip off and duplicate. Like, boy, I really like that website. I really like that design. I really like that content. How much of it can I learn how to do myself? That was a whole lot of it. And then SEO came along, like we would build websites for local companies here in Tri-Cities, Washington. And they would be like, they'd come back like 6 months later and say, we really love our website, but nobody can find it. Like, we're not getting any, how do we get traffic? So I kind of had to, teach myself SEO. And thank God Danny Sullivan had his, whatever he used to call it, the Webmaster's Guide to Search Engines or something like that. That's sort of how it all started, I guess, back in the day.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I remember reading a ton of your content on Search Engine Land because that was when I was starting to learn about SEO, the 2013 era, and I know you left there around 2017, but, it's kind of fun to talk to you because I feel like you were that resource that you didn't have when you were learning about web development because I've read so much of your content, through that platform. But when you left Search Engine Land, I remember reading something and there were just a lot of like posts saying, almost acting like you were going away from the industry completely. What was that like? Did it feel like you were stepping out of SEO, given that you were such high visibility at that point, or what?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I didn't know what I was doing next. I didn't really have a plan at that point. It was I had been thinking about so I started working. I started writing for Search Engine Land. I think it was around 2008, and then I was a columnist, and then became like a staff writer or something, and then became I don't remember the exact titles we had, but it was like 3 steps, and then
Mhm.
around 2013, Danny was going to leave his role as editor in chief and like take over this. Like again, I don't remember the title. It was like in charge of all content for the websites, the conferences, the lead gen angle, right, the whole thing. And so like I became editor in chief and all that sort of stuff, and it was wonderful. Like I look so fondly on those days, like the meetings we would have, we like at every SMX show, we would get together, the staff, and just have like editorial meetings. And I just wish those could have lasted all afternoon. It was so, but we
Mm.
obviously had to get to our next sessions, to do the moderation stuff. Just it was just like I loved it so much. But my kids were getting older. They were getting ready to go away to college. Coincidentally, Danny has kids, 2 boys, about the same age as mine. And so he was thinking the same thing. And he made his announcement to the staff that, hey, I'm going to be stepping away. I want to spend more time with my kids. And I was like, oh, dang, I was going to say that. Like, God, if Danny's leaving, how I can't go, right? Like, what's going on? But I think it just got to a point where I was like, well, after like a month or two, I was like, look, even if it's going to cause like all kinds of problems, I'm ready to leave as well. My kids are getting older; they're going away to college soon. I want to spend more time with them. I want to, do all that sort of stuff. I think like that was like probably the main thing going on. This is going to get this. Here we go. Here's the point of the conversation where we go off in an area where you probably weren't expecting.
Let's do it.
Um, my dad died in 2015. My mom was very ill in 2017, and I knew she didn't have much time left. She ended up dying a few months after I left Search Engine Land. I think I left in July. She died in October. I was not in a good place mentally. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was going through situational depression. Like I was just, like it was just like that just wrecked my world when my parents died. And so, like I think under the surface, like on the surface was the stuff with just wanting something new, wanting to be more time with my kids. Under the surface, everything going on with my parents dying and being in poor health. I think that was just like that was the subconscious thing. So yeah, it was a difficult time. I didn't have any plan at that point, but I knew that, my wife was in real estate. She had been in real estate at that time for 13 years and had a pretty successful career, more successful than most agents. Like she was selling 20, 25 homes a year. The typical real estate agent sells about 10 homes per year. So she was doing well, but like she wanted to go to the next level. And so like I knew if worse comes to worse, I could just like become her marketing guy. But I think I probably sent some resumes, some applications out. Ultimately, just decided, all right, I'm just going to join her, be part of her real estate, and we were just going to become like, a team kind of thing. So yeah, it was a lot going on. When I left Search Engine Land, I didn't realize it at the time, but like what was going on with my parents, I think was really impacting me as well, and I didn't realize that till years later. So
Yeah, it's crazy how situations like that can impact you mentally, but also sort of set you up for, success in the future.
yeah,
Meaning you make decisions that you may not have otherwise made, but in some ways it's probably the right decision
yeah,
if maybe you
yeah, for
look back
sure.
on it.
Yeah, and you don't realize it till years later.
Right, exactly. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a pivotal point in both your career and personal life. Well, you talked about your wife's real estate company, and I thought it was really interesting that you sort of been surrounded by real estate your entire life for the most part. Your dad, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 50 years he owned a brokerage?
Yeah, something like that. He started in 1953, and I think he retired in
Wow.
2001, something like that. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's I was struck by just because you have other family members, I think, who are also in real estate, and then your wife as well. Were you sort of, intentionally staying away from real estate, just given that you
Yes.
were surrounded?
Heck yeah, I was. I would I was a kid. Oh my God. Like I played little league baseball, and my dad could never be at the games because he was
Mm.
too busy every night, showing houses to people and working with his clients and all that sort of stuff. And on, little league you play on weekends. Well, on weekends he's out doing his open houses and all. So, I hated real estate, you guys. Oh my God. There was no chance I was ever going to get into real estate. Yeah, it was awful. I was like, nope. And then when even like when my wife, like we got married in 91 and she worked in retail and, did like management on, Lens Crafter stores and Maurice's and Eddie Bauer and that sort of stuff at our local mall. But then she's like, I think I want to get into real estate. I'm like, no, God, no, don't do it. So yeah, I resisted forever the whole real estate thing. Just
Well, now you're knee deep in it. So
like,
let's talk about it a little bit. We have a couple of real estate clients. My first real agency role was at an agency in San Diego, and their primary vertical is real estate. So I've been sort of in and out of the industry for many years as well. And I think there's one thing that smaller maybe real estate agents or just agents starting out always face is this idea of buying leads, right? You have platforms like Zillow and Nextdoor and like all these other types of sites where you can solicit and buy leads. And, just in reviewing your LinkedIn content, there's, constant references of don't do that, like invest in a long-term strategy. So I'm curious, like when you start working with a realtor who is doing that, like how do you ease them off of that lead stream in exchange for building something that is a little bit longer term, but maybe not something that delivers the results as immediately?
it's very, very difficult, as I've learned the hard way over the last couple of years, because there's a huge portion of the industry that is very like needs that instant gratification and is not focused on, what does my business look like a year from now? What does my business look like 5 years from now? I think like the biggest problem, I mean, there's systemic problems with real estate. Number one is that it's way too easy to get your real estate license. Like it is easier to get a real estate license than to get licensed to cut people's hair. A license, like just about any industry that you find that requires licensing, it's probably more difficult to get that license than it is a real estate license. It's just the bar is so low. You get a lot of like people who like they're on social media, they're scrolling Instagram, they see all the realtors doing, their glamour shots where the dude is like leaning up against the Maserati, oh, just finished my listing appointment, or the gal is sitting on the island in the kitchen of the luxury home, and they make it look easy. And so a lot of people get into real estate just with no idea that how difficult it is to find business. And like there's internal stats that's like something like 87% of real estate agents fail within 5 years. And which is it's
Wow.
just a crazy number, right? Like if you knew that, why would you get into this industry? And so I don't know. It's very difficult to convince them that SEO is something they should be doing because they don't have the patience. Their business is not built on the patience and the long-term thinking. They are like, my Lord, where is my next lead coming from? Where is my next sale coming from? If I don't get another lead or another sale in the next month, I'm going to have to go get a part-time job. So it's very, how do I do? I mean, I'm not really good at it, if I'm being honest with it, because like I've been doing, my own business for a little over 2 years now. And like, I really struggle to convince agents that they should, that they should be doing this. And so I'll say like, I posted this a year and a half ago and I said, you guys should probably be focusing on SEO. Imagine what your business would look like now if you took my advice then. Right. And it just, I don't know. I think it just like, it goes
I
over
know
their
we
heads.
saw on your people can just request a consultation with you through your site. They need
Yeah.
30 minutes, a Q&A, or
Yeah.
an hour.
Yeah.
They don't become a retained client. Are you mostly talking to those up and coming, this is my first year in the business, I need some advice? I mean, those guys are just chasing their next meal, like how do I survive
Yeah.
this year? Or who are you speaking to mostly? Who's reaching out to you?
So in starting my own business, that right there has been the number one problem in figuring out who I am speaking to, because like finding my audience, because I thought like SEO has never been a priority for most real estate agents. So a couple more stats that may blow your mind. According to the National Association of Realtors, they do an annual member profile every year. Only 28% of realtors don't have any website at all. 44% just have the generic 1 or 2 page website that their brokerage gives them. And then the other 28% are agents that have an actual website the way you and I think about websites. So like 1 out of 4 agents barely have a functioning website, which is just crazy, right? So I went into this thinking, I'll just show them, like, if like they're always like, oh, buyers and sellers are on, social media every day, so I'm going to be on Instagram, which is true. But buyers and sellers, as we, the three of us, know, they might be on social media every day, but they're not looking for real estate agents every day on social media. They're not looking for homes for sale every day on like nobody goes to Instagram and types homes for sale in location, right? They don't go to Instagram typing who's the best real estate agent in location, right? They go to Google for that. And so I just thought, if I showed them, hey, by the way, the people that actually are looking for you are over here on Google, maybe you should be too. I thought it was going to be easy, but no, maybe I'm just a terrible salesperson. I don't know, but it's been very difficult to get them to understand that buyers and sellers are over here, are the ones that are ready to buy and sell and find an agent are over on Google. They're not just like swiping down their Facebook feed and all that sort of stuff. It's really, really difficult. And so, Joe, to get back to that thing about the consultation that I offer on my website, the only agents that ever sign up for that are ones that already appreciate SEO. And so like I never get a tire kicker or somebody signing up for that to say, what is SEO, that kind of stuff. Those folks, they just, they don't ever reach out. So,
I mean, I guess in one way that's a more qualified potential lead, but yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating stat. 1 in 4 don't have a website. I mean,
none at all.
yeah, that's wild.
Crazy.
You have a obviously very deep background in content, and I think the real estate vertical is arguably one of the most difficult from a content perspective for a variety of reasons, which hopefully we can dig into. One is there's just so much generic content out there. Like everyone is creating moving guides or tips in X city and that sort of thing. So when maybe a realtor who has a website comes to you and says, hey, I'm trying to figure out this content thing, it's just not working, and they're putting out a lot of just really generic stuff, like how do you help them add their own eat or some sort of to the content that allows it to stand on its own in a very crowded space?
I would first say that it's not as crowded as you think. I mean, there are some agents in some markets doing some really good work. But if you were to Google something like moving to Columbus, Ohio, Columbus might be too big a city, but like take it down to like whatever the next, Toledo, Ohio, maybe. You will probably not find a whole lot of real estate agents in the top 10 for that. You will probably find moving companies. You might find
Right.
Redfin at the high level, right? Like New York, Seattle, the big cities, Phoenix. Yeah, it's competitive. But for agents in smaller markets, I see a lot of open spaces where they can do stuff. What I think they get wrong, no matter the size of the market, Joe, is they don't understand what buyers and sellers are Googling and looking for. So they'll put a lot of content on their website, like real estate glossaries, and like what is an appraisal and what is a home inspection and all that sort of stuff. And the person that, and to be clear, there's a million searches for what is a home appraisal. There's a million searches for what is a home inspection. But those people are probably already in the middle of a transaction, right? Because their agent's like, okay, well, the next step is we're going to do the home appraisal. And they're like, we're going to do what? And so they need to so like I spend a lot of time saying this is what buyers and sellers are actually Googling. They're like, what's the cost of living in this city? What are the best neighborhoods in this city? What do I need to know about relocating to this city? What are the pros and cons of, of living in Seattle versus Portland, right? There's a lot of comparison searches in real estate. So that's kind of the main thing. And then the other thing, speaking to EEAT, and there's like this whole thing, and I'm sure, it's the same in every industry, is like, well, I'll just have ChatGPT write my blog post and just put it on my blog. And they think that's going to be the miracle cure. And it's not the miracle cure. So yeah, there's a lot of, there's a lot of misconceptions in there that are happening right now.
I've listened to a lot of your podcasts over for a long time, and I've heard you say more than once. The general advice is like for a real estate agent, for a small real estate agency, you want to be the expert of your neighborhood. Like
Mhm.
try to figure out like how you can be unique to just this area that you're serving. And I think that probably makes sense for a lot of home services businesses too. Whereas where John and I might have created a content strategy in the past that said, let's try to answer these general questions that people ask when they want to get a new roof or their toilet breaks or their refrigerator's leaking. It doesn't seem like that content really works anymore. Where maybe it did a few years ago, it's not working anymore. So now it's with the EEAT principle. The advice now is like, what something you can say unique
Yeah.
to this conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've been seeing it for years.
Yeah, and I always tell them, like, even if you're going to have, Claude or GPT or whatever write your blog post, you need to put your experience. Like, you've probably had an experience with a buyer or seller where the transaction kind of almost went off the rails, or the buyer or seller like made this mistake. You need to tell those stories, right? Like that's your expertise. It's something local about the area, maybe, that like that they can't get directly from GPT or Claude or whatever. Like, that needs to be in those articles so that you can, stand out, be different, like separate your content from the rest. There's an agent that I just spoke with last week, and she's in San Antonio. She's not a client or anything. She has written some blog posts, very detailed, for the state of Texas, for the San Antonio market, about VA assumption loans. Very, very niche, very specific. But now you go to ChatGPT and start asking about VA assumption loans in the state of Texas. She comes up and she says she's gotten like 5 leads in the last 2 months just for people talking about, like, wanting information about VA assumption loans. So, like, narrow in and be really specific, and like talk about your experiences and your expertise and get that on the page. Like I say, like, you can be the best real estate agent in your market and have the most sales and all the great reviews, but if you are not putting your expertise on your website, then Google has no idea how good you are. You have to do that.
I think the amazing thing about realtors too is they're the ones having the direct communications with the potential buyers or sellers. They're in such a unique position to hear the types of questions that are getting asked, like, firsthand, and just being able to translate or transpose those into a piece of content with their own expertise, or even sort of regurgitating the answer that they gave them, I think is, almost invaluable, because a
Yeah.
lot of those conversations for clients that we work with happen on the customer service side or with the
Yeah.
salespeople. And unless there's like an effort to sort of bring all that or make that content and those conversations visible, you don't always get that level of detail. So these, essentially business owners, right, are having that like firsthand. There's just so much value in those conversations.
And I've said this to real estate agents, and I wonder. So I'll ask you guys a question. Like, do you find this in other industries? I've said, if the buyer or seller is asking you the question, you can bet others are Googling it as well. Is that the same way in other industries?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, the volume may be less, but honestly, to your point, about VA assumption loans, that volume may not be high, but that person is really targeted.
Yeah, high intent.
Exactly. So in some cases, even though the search volume may be less, the few who actually click through are going to be extremely qualified. And arguably that's the goal, right?
That's exactly who you want. Yeah, the ones
Yeah.
that are looking for something specific that you can deliver. That's perfect.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about some technical items specific to real estate. We had Zach Chahalis on the show, who manages apartments.com and is part of that,
Oh,
larger network. And I asked him if there are any questions that he would want me to ask you.
okay.
So he wanted to know about how you try to manage for duplicate content. So, right, IDX feeds. MLS like basically pumping out all the same content. And then you have these, CMS platforms that sort of take all that same content and essentially like repackage it onto the page, which, creates a lot of duplicate content issues. So I'm curious, especially for like smaller realtors, right, who may not have like a big technical IT team or something like that. Like, how do you recommend that they try to manage for some of that stuff?
It's a huge, huge problem because all the home listings are the same, right? We're all using the same MLS feed, and yeah, like it's it's a huge problem. So different real estate platforms give you different options to sort of like massage or kind of finagle your way through this issue.
Mhm.
I have been working most recently with a platform called Sierra Interactive, which is probably, I mean, if I had to say, if you polled the industry, most people would say it's probably the most SEO friendly of all the
Mhm.
platforms. There are some other ones that, that are pretty good. So like what I do with a client is for the IDX is first, like what's available to us. And so in Sierra, we will customize the title tag to like be as unique as possible, right? Like there's certain things that you want in the title tag, and Zach knows this from the work he's done with apartments. Like obviously you need
Mhm.
the address in there, you need the MLS number in there, but people also tend to search for like they'll if they drive past a house, then they're going to want to see photos of address or whatever it might be. So you just kind of like customize the title tag as best you can to hit on whatever you think people might search. And then Sierra itself has a little thing, I don't remember what they call it in the back end, but you can add custom content to the property detail page,
Okay.
which will only show on your website. And it's literally the only way that I know to like make that page any different from what's going to be on the next agent and the next agent's website. And it's really all you can do at that point. And so in my experience, and the next real estate SEO you interview and Zach's experience may be different, but in my experience, it then comes down to overall strength of the website. Like, how much does Google like trust your website versus the next agent's site? And the one that it trusts more, Google's going to say, all right, I'll use their property listings, their IDX listings. Because I mean, you're so limited in what you can do to sort of play with that data. It's
And they're
really,
very
it's really
strict, right? Like you can't rewrite descriptions and you can't like
exactly.
change. So you're very limited by really what the feed gives you. So
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
option to add custom content is
Yeah.
huge.
So, like for most agents, I mean, you guys know it. Like my client, if I had a client in Seattle, they're not going to rank for Seattle homes for sale. I mean, that's Zillow, that's Redfin, that's all the big sites. But can they rank for Seattle, Seattle homes for sale, 2 bedrooms, 3 baths, whatever it is, like the more specific stuff, near a school, or can they rank for homes for sale near, some landmark, some golf course, the Space Needle, whatever it might be? That to me is where the opportunity is for the local agent when it comes to IDX. If you can create these sort of custom landing pages, maybe not at the property level, but at the neighborhood level, there's a lot of room for success there, in my opinion.
John, is it too early to make the obligatory jump to AI, or we want to?
I actually noticed we made it almost 30 minutes before we had a chat GPT reference. So I think we're beyond our quota. Let's do it.
So, Matt, queries getting longer, people getting more comfortable talking to a search tool. Are you looking at prompts at all? Are you trying to understand how the prompts are changing now that people are more comfortable talking, having like full on paragraph queries with the newer search tools?
Yeah. So here's the thing. A lot of this stuff in my experience, and again, I'm just limited by the sites I have access to and the clients I work with, and my wife obviously as well. A lot of what you hear and see on LinkedIn and Twitter or wherever it might be, social media, is not happening yet in real estate. So like my wife's website, for example, gets a lot of Google traffic. I think she's had only like all year 2025, what are we, September? I think she's had like 110 visits from AI. for the whole year. And so when I see like a lot of the people in our industry, they post like, oh, here's my chat GPT traffic and, thousands of visits every month. I'm like, that is not happening certainly in real estate. And I suspect it's probably not happening a lot yet in a lot of small business scenarios. So when I go and I look at longer queries, I mean, we all wish we'd had better data on this, but like there was that trick that came out 3-4 months ago where you do the regex in Google Search Console to see queries that are at least 16 or 32 words long or characters long or whatever it is. The funny thing is, at least for my wife's website, the longer queries are other real estate agents asking how to do their business. Like, I wish I could remember what, like, it's like, I'm a real estate agent. My buyer is wondering, if they are allowed to keep looking at other properties, even though they just had an offer accepted. Is this okay? Question mark. And like
Cute.
my wife gets traffic for a query just like that.
Does she have blog content about that? Is that why? Okay.
Yeah. She did a video. We had a segment that we should probably restart, given the way people are asking questions now. We had a thing that she did 4 or 5 years ago called Ask the Realtor. And people would submit questions and she just answered them in like these 2 or 3 minute long videos. We put the transcript online. But yeah, so like that's a question that people ask. But like I said, I'm seeing it's like a lot of other realtors asking that question, like, what am I allowed to do with my clients and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think it's happening, but I just don't see it as prevalent in real estate, at least in the sites I'm working on. Maybe I'm not as good at SEO as I think. It's just not as prevalent as what I see some of the folks that do B2B marketing and, SaaS and all that kind of stuff. So
consumer behavior sometimes just changes really slowly and we get used to the extra steps we have to take. I remember looking for a house and like fell in love with Redfin at the time.
mm-hmm.
They had every filter that I wanted,
Yeah.
let me check all the boxes that I wanted. But now if you could just say, I'm married, I have 2 kids, I'm looking for a house in this neighborhood. We would love to have a pool. We definitely want a deck, a patio.
Mm-hmm.
You say it all and then something magically appears. It
Yeah.
can't be that far away.
Yeah. I want to believe that too. Have you done any searches lately? Have you gone to like ChatGPT or Perplexity and like typed in like Tucson? Show me a list of homes for sale in Tucson that are between $500,000 and $750,000. Have you happened to do that lately? It's the most god awful experience ever. The reason is they don't have access to that data, right? Like MLS data is highly protected. You have to have contracts and licenses in place and even to get a website that's allowed to show that data, like the steps that an agent has to go through and the signatures and the broker has to sign it's ridiculous. So that data is really protected. So Google doesn't have that data. They can only scrape what's on Zillow. And so the GPT and Perplexity don't have it. So it's a terrible experience if you do that kind of search on an AI tool. And so like there are some platforms that are trying to bring AI into the home search experience, but they're really struggling because people search for things in so many weird and different ways. Like they'll be searching for a waterfront home in a certain school district or whatever. And then all of a sudden, because the real estate agent put the word water in the property description to describe the fact that there's maybe a little canal, running in the backyard, like that shows up in the search results, and the search results get polluted by how non-uniform the data is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? It's a really tough nut to crack, and I want to believe that it will come soon, but I'm not convinced that it will come soon. I think filters on sites like Redfin or a local agent site for the foreseeable future will be the way to find exactly what you're looking for.
I agree with you. I hope John disagrees just so we can have some conversation. So the other thing, like with Redfin, the filters are great. You can filter in Zillow too. You can filter to exactly what you're looking for, but the result is all visual, and that's how people shop for property.
Mm-hmm.
The thing they want, like they get their 10 filters, all those boxes checked, and it's like, oh, what is that? Now, what does it look like? I'm not ready to read anything just yet. I just want to look at pictures for a while. And you can't do that with AI search just yet.
Right. Yeah.
So I did the search while you guys were talking. I did a deep research on Perplexity for show me a list of homes in Tucson, Arizona, and it only came back with 2,
Right.
which is like a
Exactly.
wildly different
Yes.
experience than search. And unfortunately, I don't disagree with you guys for the conversation perspective, but I think the way that all of this is moving, right? I think the expectation will be the search experience of the future, but no website is really incentivized to enable that, right? Like even think about the Redfins and the Realtors.coms and all these huge sites. They make a ton of their revenue on display advertising, lead volume, right? There's so many of these revenue generating components that rely on the actual visitor. And so for them to say, yeah, I want to enable this experience to only happen within an AI environment is kind of counterintuitive to their entire business model. So
Yeah.
I think when AI first came out, it was a lot of that talk, and I think the realities of it are starting to play out a little bit. I mean, in the future, one day, sure. I don't think it's as near as maybe a lot of us thought when ChatGPT first came out
Yeah.
because of all those things, right? Like, how
Yeah.
do you displace all that revenue?
Yeah. Real estate, just in general, whether you're talking about marketing or operations or whatever it is an industry that has been very, very resistant to change. Resistant probably isn't the right word, because I don't think it's not that they don't want change. It's just, it's like kind of been immune to change. Like, like there are headlines from 20 years ago that, when 30 years ago, I guess now, gosh, boy, yeah, it's 2025. But you can go back and find like New York Times and Wall Street Journal headlines from the 90s where it said, boy, people are using the internet. We're not going to need real estate agents anymore soon. And here, real estate is still, you look at the stats now, like 90 to 92% of all transactions happen with a real estate agent. Like the real estate agent has been, just like SEO has been pronounced dead, like for decades and decades. And the real estate agent is more needed today than ever. So yeah, the industry just does not change very quickly. It just doesn't.
I mean, there's an expertise associated with being a realtor, that I don't want to have to go out and learn myself. And so that's where the monetary exchange like happens. Just as with SEO, like there may be a great marketer, but that person may not know SEO really well. And so again, there's that monetary transaction in exchange for the knowledge. There's value in that profession. I guess is where I was going with that. But speaking of AI, you are very adamant about like keep scrolling past the doomsday, which I think is where we were sort of talking about already. Like what tips do you have for people who, are getting sidetracked by the shiny objects, or, the people who are saying they're experts in geo already and things like that? There's a lot of, muddiness to wade through to get to what is actually factual.
So yeah, I mean, I just keep relying on data for that kind of stuff. Like I was just at a real estate conference 2 weeks ago, and they were talking, like one of the people on stage was like, you still use Google? That's antiquated. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, there's actual data that shows, how many people are still using Google versus how many people are using GPT or Perplexity or whatever. And I think the other thing there have been some posts, and you've probably seen them on LinkedIn or wherever, where if you look at how people use Google, everything you do on Google pretty much is search, right? Like people don't go to Google to have conversations. But if you look at how people use ChatGPT, like the number one thing they use it for is like what, personal therapy or something like that, and like self-improvement. And there's Mark Williams Cook had a post like a month or so ago where he'd had a screenshot. Like there are entire subreddits of people who are talking about how AI is their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and they spend all day having conversations with their AI boyfriend and girlfriend, and they go and then they get on Reddit and they talk about it. Like, oh, today my AI boyfriend told me how wonderful. And I'm like, how much of GPT activity is that versus how much is search? And Profound had some data at some point where it's like almost 50% of ChatGPT use is just chit chat. And I'm like, all right, like, just give me the data. So I just rely on the data. Like I see data like that. I'm like, it is not as big a deal as you are making it. And I can see the data that on my wife's site and my client's sites. And it's not there yet for the people I work with. And if you work in B2B and you are seeing that, that huge chat GPT traffic go up, then by all means, focus on it more. But for me, it's just not a huge priority right now.
I don't know if you saw this post from Brody Clark. I think he published it today. It was similar web data that showed the overlap of um, ChatGPT users who also use Google,
Mhm.
and I think it was nearly like 85% or 75%. Um, so I think there's this, perception that a lot of those searches are getting stolen by ChatGPT. But I think to your point, it's just different conversations happening over
Yeah.
there.
And one
There's
of the
still a lot
things,
of
yeah, one of the things we see in local search, and I see this in some of the other local SEOs that I communicate with, because in GPT or Perplexity or whatever you're using, because like the sources aren't always self-evident, like it's not easy to find where to, like a lot of times they'll do a search like, hey, I need a realtor to help me sell my mid-century modern home in Richland, Washington. Who should I be talking to? And then GPT will give them a list, and then they'll go and they'll Google the names, right? To figure out, right? We see that a lot in local search. So like, that's one of the other things that I'm trying to impress upon the real estate agents that I talk to, is that, yeah, like you were just saying, John, there's sort of like an additive kind of thing going on here, right?
well, and that's what's so interesting, right? Like the AI engines or models or whatever you want to call them, the search experiences haven't figured out how to allow for that connection, right? So it gives you a list, but it doesn't give you an easy way to contact them from that
Right.
platform. I now have to go to Google. And so you can just imagine how far away the actual real estate, searching and buying experience is when they
Yeah.
can't make even something as simple as that, a pretty fluid process. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be amazing if you could say, okay, contact all of these with this message
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that would be incredible, but we're not there yet.
No, that is true. That is true.
But let's maybe talk about KPIs because you're seeing some of these things, but it sounds like a lot of the traditional KPIs that you would evaluate as success from an SEO perspective are still, what we would probably commonly think about. So for Joe and I, right, when we're thinking about putting a report together for a client, it's things like traffic and leads, and maybe there's some rankings in there. When you're working on your wife's site or maybe even a client's site, are there different metrics that you're looking at outside of those, like specifically for realtors that would lead you to believe that things are moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think I do still look at a lot of the traditional ones. The one that I've gotten more interested in the last 6 months or so, last 8 months, is branded search volume.
Oh, interesting.
Because we know from the various court documents and whatever, and other things that our industry has discovered, is that like Google sees you as more important when people search for you by name, right? Like we all know that that's a thing now, that it's kind of been confirmed, as much as anything in SEO gets confirmed. And so like probably around, like, I think it was last September, so almost a year now, I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way. How do I get people to start searching for my wife more by name? And so we started doing some stuff on social media and here and there and there. And so like right now, when I go into her Google Search Console, her name, Carrie McGee, is always one of the top queries for her. And that to me is a win, because I want people, I want Google to think, hey, people are looking for this agent. She must be good. She must be important. And so when I work with clients, I'm doing the same thing. Look, we need to increase your branded searches. That is a KPI. That is a metric that really matters going forward. So what can we do to get people to search for you by name? So that's probably like the one thing that years ago I didn't look at much, but I really look at now. I think it's really important. And I think if I were, whether I'm working in real estate or any industry, I'd be looking at that. Like, how do I get people to, how
Hmm.
much branded search volume am I getting?
I mean, there is this mantra in the industry of SEO moving more to be like a brand demand channel. Is that something that I guess agree with?
Yeah, totally. Totally in real estate, especially because in real estate, there's, as we talked about earlier, there's a whole level of agents that have no idea what they're doing. and they're new, they're inexperienced, and then there's the ones that are more experienced and know what they're doing. And I think there's a lot of data inside real estate that like when you ask sellers and buyers, like, why did you choose the agent? And they list like there's a lot of surveys where it shows that they are selecting competence and experience. And so I think you need to, like, that's kind of like what I'm trying to get my wife and my clients is like, we need to show your brand, your experience, your competence. Like, you need to be the one that they think of as the competent, experienced agent that can get me to my goal, whether it's buying, selling, relocating, whatever it is.
Do you ever see a result in those surveys that the person says, saw his face on a bench in front of a bus stop?
I have never seen that specific one, Joe. I mean, I mean,
That's so good.
I mean, I think there's possibly value to that kind of thing if it increases brand awareness. Like if we were going to run bench ads for Carrie, I wouldn't put her phone. I would say Google Carrie McGee. Like, that's what I would do, because that's literally what I want them to do. I want everyone to Google her by name, because the search results are really good, the Google business profile is really good, and the more search volume for her name, intuitively trust that is going to boost her business. So yeah, I wouldn't even put
I,
her phone number there.
I loved on Carrie's homepage, and this maybe this is your wordsmithing, but the like, as soon as you land on the page, don't worry, we've done this over 600 times. Like,
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Love that. Okay, one last question. I don't know, this is probably a horrible segue, but before we get to the rapid fire and sort of wrap things up,
Oh, okay.
you had a great post on LinkedIn about ageism
Mm,
and trying to find your next role and sort of working through that process. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was about a year ago.
it was.
And what reminded me of it was your comment about experience. So again, really loose segue, but here we are. And I think if you browse Reddit or look at the news or anything like that, you hear a lot about people who are losing their jobs and things like that. Both Joe and I are approaching that 50-year-old mark. So I'm just curious, like, if you like, is there anything you would add to that post? And we'll link to it in the show notes because it was great. And but do you think there is anything that you would add to that post in terms of combating ageism for folks who are looking for a job now that AI is, another year old, right? And this perception of maybe technology and AI displacing jobs and things like that. I don't know if I'm asking this question well, but I feel like a lot of people could use these types of tips right now.
Yeah, I mean, because it's certainly not just me. Do you guys know who Tad Miller is? He's in the SEO industry as well, and he lost his job. Gosh, I don't even want to put dates on it because I'll be wrong. He went through the same thing I went through. Where he is in his 50s and started a job search, and just tons and tons of experience, should have been snapped up like that. And it took him, I don't remember what it was, 8 months, 12 months, 14 months, something like that, for him to find a job. It's like, it's not just what happened to me. And for real briefly, so like, when I went through my home layoffs in 2023, I started applying for work, could not get the time of the day to even get it to interviews. When I did get an interview, it was for roles that I was, quote, overqualified for, and couldn't get hired. I mean, it was just really difficult. And then I found a coach. So there are coaches out there, hiring coaches, HR coaches, that like specifically work with the 50 plus set. The gal that I found, her name is Colleen Paulson. She's on LinkedIn, incredible content that she puts out there. And she had a post where she said, you've got to like strip your resume down. You've got to basically make yourself look younger. Like, you've got to basically lie, which I hated, right? Because I'm proud of the experiences that I had
Right.
in the 90s and pre whatever year. So anyway, I took her advice. I cut everything pre 2006, I think, off my resume. Instead of my current profile photo, I used one from 2013, when I was obviously much younger, when I was still in my 40s. And guys, literally I think it was within the first month, I had, like, it's in the post, the details. It was like 3 or 4 headhunters reached out to me. I got like 3 or 4 job interviews. I got like 1 offer that was for a job that wasn't really up my alley, that I wasn't really that interested in, so I declined it. But just like the night and day change that happened because I suddenly didn't look like, I was over 50, it was just crazy. So that's the backstory. So what I would say is, if you are approaching your 40s or you're approaching your 50s, like, this is a known problem in the industry. Like, there are stats that talk about how difficult it is for somebody above 50 to get hired these days. I would just say, if you're approaching 50, or if you're in your, like, obviously be aware of this, and you better have a backup plan. Like, you better be prepared. Like, are you going to start your own business? Are you going to like
Mm.
switch careers? Like, are you going to get into like become a waiter or a waitress or whatever it might be? Because like just the stories people talk about on LinkedIn, it's horrifying, the stuff that they're going through, just
Yeah.
because they're over a certain number. And the average person stays at a job for 4 years. So why wouldn't you hire somebody who is 55 years old and can give you 4 great years of their knowledge and experience, and train your younger employees? Like, yeah, like HR departments and corporate America is so short-sighted. You really got me started. I am so sorry, but yeah, it's like I'm glad you brought it up, because I do want people to be aware of it. Like, it's been going on. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. It's ridiculous.
Well, now that we got you going, let's jump to the rapid fire so you can
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
What's one piece of real estate SEO advice that makes you want to scream?
ChatGPT, you can put your AI content on your website word for word, and you'll do great.
Is there an opportunity that you turned down in your career that you still think about?
Is there an opportunity I turned down? No, not off the top of my head, there's not. And I try not to, live with regrets, or, the decisions you make are the decisions you make, and you got to move on. So no,
Mhm.
I don't think there's an opportunity that I've ever turned down. I'll probably think of one later, but right now, no.
I know you posted a lot about Danny Sullivan and sort of how he helped your career, but is there maybe someone else who gave you advice that completely changed the career trajectory for you?
Yeah, Danny's a good one. A great, great guy. Loved working for and with Danny. Wow. Can I say my wife? Is that possible?
Sure.
She does, every year she does this word of the year, and she announces it she determines it in December, January. It's her word of the year for the following year. And she just kind of like keeps it in the back of her head, and uses it to sort of like guide her son decision. And like, I was just kind of like, this is the stupidest thing in the world, right? But I decided to do a word of the year this past December, and thought about it and thought about it, and my word of the year for 2025 was go.
Mm.
Because I have a tendency to be the type of person that needs things to be absolutely perfect before I take action. But I said, just go do it, and all this, and like that. Yeah, so like, this year has been a great, great year, personally and business wise, just because I said, I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to do things, even if they're not perfect. So
Love that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
her advice was really great there.
Are you going to do that for next year as well?
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
will. Yeah, I think I will.
Love it. Love it. What's something about you that would surprise people?
Something about me that would surprise people. People are surprised to hear that I am an extreme introvert. This kind of stuff, what we're doing, comes naturally to me. Getting on a stage and talking to a
Mhm.
crowd comes naturally to me. But standing at a mixer during an SMX conference and having small talk with people I don't know is the most painful. Don't want to do it. Don't want to be there. Let me go back to my hotel room so I can get online and get some work done, kind of thing. People, when I say I'm an introvert, they're like, yeah, you were on TV, you speak at conferences, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Man, I share some similar feelings about that kind of stuff. Like, this is very comfortable, but yeah, going to like a networking, like drinks or whatever, is like my nightmare.
Yeah. Surface and shallow stuff is not good for introverts. Deeper stuff like what we're doing is easy.
You ran a very successful YouTube fan site, and so this question is probably perfect for you. What YouTube album would you recommend to a teenager today?
Achtung Baby which
Nice.
1991. It's the one that has The Fly and Zoo Station and One on it. It's not it's their second biggest seller, but generally considered their best album, even better than the Joshua Tree.
All right. So Joe and I, we don't work directly with our wives, but our wives are also in marketing. So they're sort of, when we get together for dinners and things, it becomes more like work conversation. Curious what you'd recommend to a husband and wife who are thinking about working together.
Get on the same page from the beginning about expectations and borders and all that sort of stuff, because you have to keep the work from the marriage separate to some degree. You need to have separate lives. My wife and I actually tried working together about 15 years ago when I was very much a my way or the highway person, and she was not as coachable as she is now, and it didn't work, and we actually ended up in marriage counseling. So yeah, that's yeah, just get on the same page and talk about expectations and borders and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I imagine, at least for my wife and I, like with COVID, now we're both, or since COVID, we're both sort of working from home, and those lines of personal and work get
Hmm.
blurred even more when
Hmm.
everything's sort of in the same house. So yeah,
Yeah,
those are great
yeah,
tips.
yeah.
All right, last one. Not including like business or professional development books, is there a fiction or maybe a nonfiction book that has really impacted how you think or maybe even your approach to life?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of. Do you guys know who John Wooden is? John Wooden
Hmm.
was
Coach?
yeah, Coach John Wooden,
Yeah.
UCLA college basketball coach for many, many years. There's been many, many, many books written about him. Most of them are wonderful, at least the ones I've read. Great, great man. But he has a book. Can I even see it on my? I can't see it on my shelf. Oh, there it is. It's simply called Wooden. Wooden. It is a book of his teachings and quotes, how he taught his, because he didn't teach his players about basketball, he taught them about life. Like, you talk to any of his players, they will just marvel about what a great man and teacher he was. That book, like, I refer to that book for like quotes and stuff like that constantly. And yeah, just it's just called Wooden, and it comes in the hardback, at least it's a small, it comes in a like a royal blue cover.
Love it. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to check that one out. I heard Dean Smith was similar, like very into personal lives and teaching about life, less,
Yeah. And I like there's a whole generation of coaches who I think like are part of the even if they didn't directly play for or coach with John Wooden, like he's like the Steve Jobs of college basketball,
hmm
like to the degree that a lot of today's founders look up to how Steve Jobs did things. Yeah, he's a
No, that's a
amazing
great
man.
comparison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing man.
All right. So we've started a tradition. It's more of a maybe a prediction, which you might have a good sense of because another one of your LinkedIn posts was about the Bourne Ultimatum when he's doing a search for a local business. And I loved it because it's one of my favorite movies. And basically, the concept was he was doing a local search for a local business. And had it been in, today's AI mode environment, right, the movie would have failed because it wouldn't have shown everything he needed. But the question is, if you go to Google.com, say in 12 months, what do you expect that search experience to be?
In 12 months, I expect it to be something like AI mode. I like the little experiment that I haven't seen lately, but I saw it a couple months ago that they called it, I think they called it Web Guide or something like that.
Hmm.
It was like AI mode, but it still linked out to a lot of the source sites much better than AIOs do and AI mode does. So I like that. I could see being really, really cool. I think in 12 months, so it'll be more like AI mode, which worries me a little bit because I don't know. Well, you guys know, like a lot of the AI answers just are not great and not trustworthy and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think within 12, I'd be surprised if AI mode is not the default within 12 months.
Yeah, I think that sentiment is pretty common, unfortunately.
Mm,
Because I think you're right. We're going to see, unless they figure out something like the web guide experience, we're definitely going to see continued traffic loss, which is unfortunate.
yeah.
But Matt, this has been great. Thanks for sharing your expertise. Congratulations to your wife on reaching that #1 status in her region, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been a great conversation, and happy to come back on anytime and chat again. It's been just a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much. And remember, if you enjoyed the show, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.